And when posture goes, a lot of things break down. It starts to create so many other ailments, not just that you have bad posture, it just starts to create all those joint problems as well. Lumbar problems, shoulder problems.
The role of posture, asymmetries, any number of other explanations when it comes to back pain. If you go around to any different type of clinician, practitioner, layperson, a healthcare professional, and you ask them about their explanation for why somebody has pain, you'll get like a million different explanations for this stuff. There's no correct or incorrect posture. You'll see lots of different postures in the room right now. We can occupy lots of different positions. We can do lots of different activities. And the dosage of activity matters far more than the absolute positions that we occupy. How long are you trying to do this thing? How much are you trying to do? Are you doing too much too soon? So we don't demonize or vilify any particular position when it comes to posture. We're optimists when it comes to this stuff. You can do a whole lot of things, and you can adapt to do a whole lot of things, which is good news.
Lumbar problems, shoulder problems, even knee problems, because your hamstrings get tight. So then your knees, when you stand up, if your knees aren't capable of getting fully straight, if they're always somewhat bent, you ever try like jumping with your knees bent, like all that force goes forward into your knees, It's essentially what you're creating when you walk around with even the slightest tightness in your hamstrings. You're not aligned properly, so every step you take, there's a little bit of an anterior force driven through your kneecap, which is going to cause patellar tendonitis and all kinds of knee problems. So just think about how much the magnitude of that step after step, minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day. Yeah, I think we have a serious posture epidemic.
Other problems too, confidence, social problems. I mean, posture used to denote a lot of things. Yeah. I mean, the first impression of people is posture. Yeah. And a lot of people have.
As we do not prefer putting an inordinate amount of emphasis on moving perfectly. There is no one perfect technique. People move in a variety of ways. They can adapt to move in a variety of ways. And additionally, constantly barraging people with narratives of you have to move perfectly, you have to do it this way. If you do it wrong, what happens? Your spine explodes. Bad things happen. That's counterproductive. That's increasing the threat associated with movement and exercise, right? So we teach people, we coach people ourselves, we teach them lifting technique and how to lift efficiently and how to lift the most weight, because that's what a lot of people want to do. But we don't pair it with a narrative of not parrot like the bird, but pair it with a narrative of you must move this way, otherwise horrible things will happen. That's really harmful. Because again, then what happens is you have somebody setting up for their deadlift and they are hyper vigilant, focused on their low back. Like, if I feel anything wrong here, I need to stop and sprint out of the gym, because this is he told me I have to move perfectly because it's such a dangerous thing after all. It's like, no, it's not particularly dangerous. Resistance training is pretty safe. You can move in a whole lot of ways. If your spine flexes a little bit, it's actually not a huge deal. So we can coach people for movement efficiency, but again, be careful the narratives, the words that you craft around this stuff. We want to de-threaten movement, not increase the threat value associated with movement.
Just chasing numbers is not a good path to follow, because if your body's not equipped to handle those progressive numbers, all it's going to do is compensate and cheat and try to get the next number, really building upon a cracked foundation. And that foundation has to be strong. And a lot of times building the foundation requires the corrective exercises, the extra exercises that are meant to sort of enhance your ability to do the compound lifts and the big lifts. And then you take that journey slowly. People are not looking to take a slow journey these days. They want the instant gratification.
Or they see the thing on Instagram, they see the 1,000-pound deadlift, and they want, I want to try to do that, and they keep looping up their numbers, going there. We've just sort of lost.
You need to be strong, but you can't just be strong, because at the expense of just being strong, you can break down, you can get more injury. You have to be able to address that through corrective exercise. That's the boring stuff.
So the question we have is powerlifting safe? It appears to be relatively safe. It's 1 to 4 injuries per 1,000 participation hours, which is similar to other non-contact sports. So, for example, a prospective study of injuries in about 300 elite Swedish track and field athletes showed that they had an injury rate of about 3.57 injuries per 1,000 participation hours. Interestingly, walking and cycling are not purely benign either. Walking, for instance, has an injury rate as high as 1.2 injuries per 1,000 participation hours. Cycling, on the other hand, has an injury rate around 2 injuries per 1,000 participation hours. When you compare this to popular sports, contact sports like American football and wrestling, American football has got an injury rate of 9.6 injuries per 1,000 participation hours, and wrestling has an injury rate of 5.7 injuries per 1,000 participation hours, according to a study by Hoopman et al. In 2007. Sports like soccer, rugby, and cricket all have these massively inflated injury rates as well, 15 to 81 injuries per 1,000 participation hours. So comparatively, powerlifting is pretty safe. So the question then becomes, is it worth the risk? And I think if we turn to Nietzsche and one of the greatest rappers of the early 2000s, DMX, we can get here is that when you actually, again, look at the higher level lifters, the elite level lifters, they're actually training at much higher volumes, much higher frequencies usually than newer lifters, and yet their injury risk tends to either be the same or lower in the studies that we actually have and cited here. So what you would expect is that since they're participating in more and more training, that they're actually at risk, higher risk for injuries, but in fact they're not, and they appear to be, again, sort of able to tolerate this increased level of training due to ratcheting up that workload over time, becoming more well-trained. Unfortunately, there's no data on powerlifting or barbell sports on actually like, oh, however strong you are correlates to your injury risk.
You need to be strong, but you can't just be strong, because at the expense of just being strong, you can break down, you can get more injury. Functional component, and I do kind of hate that word, because functional training kind of went in and out as a phase, and when it came in, it had the merits of core strength and being able to have balance and coordination, but then it kind of took a little bit like of an extra leap in that phase where it became maybe some nonsense stuff. We have to be more than just strong. We have to be functionally strong. Get on that one leg. Take your hands together, keep them up, press it up over your head. You can see that every time I press up. Some nonsense stuff.
How's it feel?
Glorious. Some nonsense stuff. Some nonsense stuff. Running position right here.
No.
Drive them up. 1, 2, 3. Let's say the hardest for last. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Some nonsense stuff.